Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to unpack something kind of incredible. Like you, the listener, you're the pinnacle of evolution, at least so far,
Yeah.
billions of years, just constantly refining itself.
Yeah, it's less about feeling superior and more like just recognizing the sheer improbability of it all. Every ancestor in your lineage had to succeed, right, to pass on those genes to you against the odds.
I like that. So where do we even begin to kind of unravel this?
Maybe we start with your genes. Imagine your genes as this intricate code, a language with a four-letter alphabet, A, T, C, and G, similar to the ones and zeros in computer code. These letters, they hold the blueprint for life.
But isn't that code kind of a jumbled mess? How does it create something as complex as like a human being?
Well, that's the brilliance of it. Unlike, say, old tapes or photocopies, right, which degrade over time, this digital genetic code replicates with remarkable accuracy across generations, like generation after generation. And this precision is what allows us to compare our genetic makeup to other species.
So you're saying that by looking at our genes, we can see connections to other creatures, like, I don't know, a pig.
Exactly. You might be surprised to learn that a specific gene in humans and pigs only differs by 45 of these letters when compared to yeast.
Oh, wow, that's kind of wild.
It is, suggests a closer evolutionary kinship than you might initially think based on appearances.
Yeah, flips the script a little bit on how we see ourselves in the grand scheme of things.
And speaking of the grand scheme, this leads to the fascinating concept of a universal ancestor.
Oh, okay.
And see, it's not this ever-expanding family tree like we often imagine. It's more like a river, converging. The further back we go, the more our lineages kind of intertwine.
Okay, so you're telling me I could be related to someone? Like, I passed on the street today.
It's highly likely.
Wow.
Think about mitochondrial Eve.
Okay.
This is the most recent female ancestor from whom every single living human is descended through an unbroken maternal line.
Hold on, does that mean she was the only woman alive back then?
No, not at all. She simply represents the one female lineage that remained unbroken to the present day. Others lived alongside her, but their female lines of descent were broken at some point. Maybe they had all sons or something like that.
Okay, so mitochondrial Eve is like the ultimate grandma, at least on our mother's side.
Right.
But what about our fathers? Like, how do we account for them?
That's where the focal ancestor comes in. This ancestor represents the most recent common ancestor of all living humans, regardless of whether they are male or female.
So somewhere back in time, we all share a common ancestor. It's a fascinating thought. But let's address kind of the elephant in the room, maybe the mammoth in the Ice Age. That whole creationist argument against evolution, the classic half an eye wouldn't work, so it must have been designed.
Yes, the what good is half a wing argument. It's a misconception. It overlooks the incredible power of incremental change, of nature constantly experimenting and refining.
So how would you explain the evolution of something as complex as an eye if a quote-unquote half-formed version just wouldn't be useful?
Okay, let's look at mimicry in orchids.
Okay.
Some species of orchids have evolved to resemble female wasps to attract pollinators. Now, insects see the world very differently than we do, right? Even humans are easily tricked by things like optical illusions.
So even like a crude resemblance to a female wasp might be enough to fool a male wasp who's seeing the world through a totally different lens.
Exactly. And this brings up this intriguing concept of supernormal stimuli. This is where animals actually react more strongly to exaggerated versions of natural stimuli. Think about oyster catchers preferring giant eggs or baby gulls fixated on red spots on their parents' beaks.
So evolution doesn't aim for perfect replicas necessarily, but something good enough to give an advantage. Like, hey, that works. Let's keep going with that.
Precisely. Even small improvements accumulated over generations can lead to remarkably complex adaptations. The key is to remember that evolution works in gradients. Light levels, angles of vision, predator eyesight, where even a slight edge can make a huge difference in survival and reproduction.
It's like climbing a mountain. You don't need to leap to the summit in one go. Each small step, however insignificant it might seem, gets you closer to the top.
Perfect analogy.
Right?
And this applies beautifully to the evolution of the eye. Researchers have shown that a functional eye, capable of detecting light and forming images, could evolve in less than 500,000 years.
Wait, less than 500,000 years? That seems incredibly fast. considering how complex the eye is.
It is. It really highlights the power of natural selection operating over a vast timescales. And it's no wonder the eye has evolved independently multiple times in different lineages.
Really blows a hole in that whole designed all at once argument, doesn't it?
It does. And this leads us to another key point about how nature designs or perhaps how it selects for success. Unlike human engineers who have like specific goals in mind, a natural selection operates with a very different utility function.
Okay, what does that even mean? Utility function sounds a little complicated.
Think of it like this. We humans, we design with a purpose. We aim for things like efficiency, elegance, and functionality. But nature's utility function is simply the survival and replication of genes, no matter how messy or seemingly inefficient the outcome might be.
So evolution isn't about creating a perfect, harmonious world. It's about passing on genes to the next generation.
Exactly. And this leads to some seemingly counterintuitive outcomes. For example, the sex ratio. We might assume a 50-50 split between males and females would be ideal, but in nature, things are rarely that straightforward.
So what other factors come into play then?
Well, consider the cost of rearing offspring. If one sex demands more resources to raise to maturity, natural selection might favor parents who produce slightly more of the less demanding sex. This helps to balance the overall investment in each sex, even if their numbers in the population differ.
That's fascinating. So even something as seemingly simple as the sex ratio can reveal the subtle workings of natural selection. It's like nature's doing some serious cost-benefit analysis.
It is, and it highlights how evolution often produces solutions that are remarkably efficient,
Mm.
even if they don't always align with our human ideas of fairness or balance.
This has been quite the journey so far. Really makes you appreciate the intricate tapestry of life, and how evolution has shaped it.
It does. And speaking of an intricate tapestry, let's take a step back and consider the grand scheme of life on Earth. From an evolutionary perspective, we can view it as a replication bomb, an explosion of information initiated billions of years ago.
Replication bomb. That's a pretty powerful image.
It is. And the fact that you're here today means this bomb was incredibly successful, capable of generating the complexity and intelligence we see all around us.
So each of us is a product of this ongoing explosion of life, a testament to the power of replication and adaptation. But where do we fit into this grand explosion, this replication bomb?
Well, this journey wasn't a single event, but rather a series of thresholds crossed over billions of years, each step building upon the last. Think of it like a chain reaction, each link leading to the next.
Okay, I'm hooked. What kind of thresholds are we talking about here?
First, picture the replicator threshold, the emergence of self-replicating molecules, the spark that ignited this entire explosion of life.
So that's the foundation, the very first step on this incredible journey.
Exactly. Then comes the phenotype threshold, where replicators start producing physical traits that interact with the environment. Now, selection and adaptation can really get going.
Like they learn to play the game of life, right? They develop strategies for survival and passing on their genes.
A great way to put it. Then we have the many cells threshold, where single-celled organisms kind of band together, evolving into more complex multicellular life forms.
So cells are now cooperating and specializing, creating the potential for tissues, organs, and ultimately organisms like ourselves.
Precisely. This division of labor unleashes even greater complexity and specialization, pushing the boundaries of what life can achieve. And as this replication bomb continues to expand, it crosses another critical threshold, the nervous system threshold.
The evolution of brains. That's where things get really interesting.
Absolutely. The development of nervous systems allows for sensing, processing information, and reacting to the environment in increasingly complex ways.
From simple reflexes to complex behaviors, brains become like the control centers for life's intricate dance.
Exactly. Eventually, this leads to the emergence of language and symbolic thought.
And language, in turn, enables us to share information, build cultures, and eventually develop technologies that extend our reach beyond the confines of our planet.
That's the incredible power of the replication bomb. It's not just about biological evolution, it's about cultural evolution as well.
So the Voyager spacecraft, carrying a message about humanity out into the vastness of space, that's like a testament to the power of this ongoing explosion.
Precisely. It's a symbol of how the information generated by life on Earth is now reaching out to the cosmos.
This has been an amazing journey so far, putting our place in the grand scheme of things into perspective. We're quite literally products of this incredible replication bomb. But where do we go from here? What's next for us? The current pinnacle of evolution.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We've seen how life on Earth has evolved from simple self-replicating molecules to complex, intelligent beings capable of reaching for the stars. What role might we play in the future of this replication bomb? That's something for you to ponder as we continue our deep dive into the wonders of evolution. As we explore this idea of the replication bomb, it's fascinating to consider that this journey, this explosion of information, isn't about striving for some predetermined perfection.
So it's not like evolution has a set endpoint, like a final perfect form it's aiming for.
Exactly. You see, if you're here listening to this, it means your ancestors successfully navigated the challenges of their environments, their genes, the ones you carry today, those were the ones that worked.
So in a way, we're all like walking, talking testaments to the effectiveness of our lineage's genes.
Precisely. You are the embodiment of a long line of successful adaptations. Every feature, every quirk, every talent you possess reflects the genes that made it through the filter of natural selection.
This is making me look at myself in a whole new light.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just me, I'm like a combination of billions of years of fine-tuning.
That's a great way to think about it. And it's not just about physical traits,
Yeah.
you know? Your capacity for love, your sense of humor, your drive to understand the world, these too are products of this incredible journey.
Okay, but if evolution isn't aiming for perfection, what is it doing? Like, what's the driving force behind all this constant change and adaptation?
The driving force is simply survival and reproduction. Genes that help their carriers survive long enough to reproduce and reproduce successfully, those were the ones that got passed on.
So it's a constant arms race, like a struggle for existence where the most successful genes are the ones that they keep getting passed down.
You could say that, but it's not always about competition. Sometimes it's about cooperation.
Okay.
You know?
Can you give me an example of how cooperation plays a role in evolution?
Sure. Think of the complex societies of ants and bees. Their success relies heavily on cooperation and division of labor, within the colony.
Ah, so genes that promote cooperation can actually be beneficial for their survival.
Absolutely. In some cases, sacrificing oneself for the good of the colony can actually increase the chances of passing on your genes, especially if you share those genes with your relatives.
That's mind-blowing. It really challenges the idea of evolution as a purely selfish process. It's more nuanced than that, isn't it?
It is, and this leads us to another fascinating aspect of the replication bomb, its ability to generate increasingly complex structures and behaviors.
So we're not just talking about genes replicating themselves, but genes building increasingly sophisticated machines to carry them into the future.
Exactly. And this brings us back to that creationist argument about complex structures like the eye. They often argue that something as intricate as the eye couldn't have evolved gradually because, quote, half an eye wouldn't be useful.
Right, but as we discussed earlier, even a simple light-sensitive patch of skin can offer a survival advantage.
Precisely. And over time, natural selection can favor any incremental improvement that makes that light-sensitive patch, more effective.
So it's not about suddenly leaping from no eye to a perfect eye. It's about a series of small, advantageous changes that accumulate over generations.
Exactly. Each step along the way offers a benefit, even if it's not the final, perfectly formed structure.
It reminds me of the example we discussed about mimicry in orchids. Even a crude resemblance to a female wasp can be enough to trick a male wasp and increase the orchid's chances of pollination.
That's a great example. It highlights how evolution often works by taking advantage of existing structures and behaviors, gradually modifying them to suit new purposes.
So it's like evolution is a master tinkerer, constantly experimenting and refining its creations.
I love how that analogy captures the essence of the process, and the results of this tinkering are all around us, from the intricate design of a hummingbird's wing to the complex social interactions of primates.
Okay, but this tinkering process, it doesn't seem very efficient. It seems like it would take like forever to produce something as complex as a human brain, for example.
That's where the power of exponential growth comes in. Remember, even small advantages can accumulate rapidly over generations.
Right. The more successful replicators there are, the more variations are generated,
Yeah.
and the faster the process of adaptation can occur.
Precisely. What starts as a subtle advantage can quickly snowball into a significant evolutionary shift.
So this replication bomb is constantly accelerating,
Right.
right? Generating complexity and diversity at an incredible pace. But if evolution isn't about reaching a perfect endpoint, then what's the ultimate goal?
That's that's where things get philosophical. Some argue that the goal of evolution is simply to continue evolving, to explore every possible niche and push the boundaries of complexity.
So it's not about achieving some predetermined state of perfection, but about the journey itself, the constant exploration of new possibilities.
That's one way to look at it, and it's a perspective that fills me with a sense of awe and wonder. Think about it. The very fact that we're here contemplating these questions, it's a testament to the incredible power of this ongoing process.
It really makes you appreciate how special and unique each of us is. We are quite literally the products of billions of years of successful adaptation.
Exactly. And that realization can be both humbling and empowering. It reminds us that we are part of something much larger than ourselves, a grand story that's still unfolding.
This has been an incredibly thought-provoking discussion so far. Really shifted my perspective on what it means to be human, to be a product of this incredible journey of evolution.
It's fascinating, isn't it? But there's one more key point we need to address before we wrap up this deep dive, the idea of God's utility function. This concept can be challenging to grasp, especially for those who view the world through a more traditional lens of design and purpose.
Yeah, the idea that nature operates with a different utility function than we might expect is definitely a head scratcher. Can you break it down for us a bit more?
Yeah, it is a challenging concept, but it's also really quite liberating when you think about it.
Okay, in what way?
Well, it frees us from this need to find a specific purpose or meaning in every aspect of nature. To see everything as part of some grand design.
So you're saying it's okay to just appreciate the sheer wonder and diversity of life without needing to explain it all away with some ultimate purpose.
Exactly. We can marvel at the intricate adaptations of a hummingbird or the complex social structures of ants without needing to impose our own ideas of purpose or design onto them.
That's a really interesting perspective. It kind of takes the pressure off a little bit, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
we don't need to have all the answers. We could just enjoy the ride.
It does, and it opens us up to a deeper appreciation for this the sheer creativity and ingenuity of the evolutionary process. This replication bomb we've been talking about.
Right. It's like nature's constantly experimenting, trying out new ideas, seeing what works, and the results are just mind-blowing.
They are, and it's a process that's still ongoing. Evolution hasn't stopped with us. It's still unfolding all around us, even as we speak.
So even though we might be the current pinnacle of evolution, the latest and greatest model, so to speak, there's no guarantee that we'll stay on top forever.
Exactly. The future of evolution is full of possibilities, and
Yeah.
and who knows what incredible adaptations might emerge, millions of years from now.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting to think about, isn't it?
It is, but it's also a reminder of the incredible resilience and adaptability of life itself. No matter what challenges the future holds, the replication bomb is likely to keep ticking,
Yeah.
generating new and unexpected forms of life for as long as the conditions on Earth allow.
This deep dive has been quite a journey, a real mind-bending exploration of life and our place within it. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the complexity and the interconnectedness of it all.
That's wonderful to hear. It's been a real pleasure sharing these insights with you. And I hope this deep dive encourages you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep marveling at the wonders of evolution, this incredible force that has shaped every living thing on Earth.
I know I will.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners will too. Thanks for joining us as we explored the river of genes, the replication bomb, and the truly remarkable journey that led to you, dear listener, the current pinnacle of evolution on this planet.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.